But it was really in the last 10 years that people started pushing for like ideological based censorship. They pushed us super hard to take down things that were true. These people from the Biden administration would call up our team and like scream at them and curse. And it's like these.
Welcome back to Freedom and Liberty Watch, where today we're diving into one of the most explosive revelations about government overreach and big tech censorship that should make every American's blood boil. Ladies and gentlemen, what you're about to witness is nothing short of a confession of how the deep state machinery manipulated one of the most powerful tech platforms in human history. After Brexit and Trump's victory in 2016, the establishment didn't just get nervous. They got organized. They created a narrative so powerful it would justify the most extensive censorship campaign in modern history. When the American people dared to think for themselves, the deep state didn't just push back. They orchestrated a complete takeover of the narrative. Let's watch this stunning revelation.
Think started the pathway towards increasing censorship, because clearly we were going in that direction for the last few years. It seemed like we really found out about it when Elon bought Twitter and we got the Twitter files. And when you came on here and when you were explaining the relationship with FBI, where they were trying to get you to take down certain things that were true and real, and certain things they tried to get you to limit the exposure to them. So it's these kind of conversations. Like, when did all that start?
Really in the last 10 years that people started pushing for like ideological based censorship. I think it was two main events that really triggered this. In 2016, there was the election of President Trump, also coincided with basically Brexit in the EU and sort of the fragmentation of the EU. And then, in 2020, there was COVID. And I think that those were basically these two events where for the first time, we just faced this massive institutional pressure to basically start censoring content on ideological grounds. And
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when it first came up in 2016, did it come under the guise of the Russian collusion hoax?
And this is the thing. At the time, I was really sort of ill prepared to kind of parse what was going on. Right? It's I think part of my reflection looking back on this is I kind of think in 2016 in the aftermath, I gave too much deference to a lot of folks in the media who were basically saying, okay, there's no way that this guy could have gotten elected except for misinformation. People can't actually believe this stuff, right? It has to be that there's this kind of like massive misinformation out there. Some of it started with the Russia collusion stuff, but it kind of morphed into different things over time.
Well, he was so ideologically polarizing, right? Like people didn't want to believe that anybody looked at him and said, this should be our president. Yeah.
So I took this and just kind of assumed that everyone was acting in good faith. And I said, okay, well, there are concerns about misinformation. We should, just like when people raised other concerns in the past and we try to deal with them. Okay, yeah, people if you ask people, no one says that they want misinformation. So maybe there's something that we should do to basically try to address this. But I was really worried from the beginning about basically becoming this sort of decider of what is true in the world, right? That's like kind of a crazy position to be in for billions of people using your service. And so we tried to put in place a system that would deal with it. And early on tried to basically make it so that it was really limited. We're like, all right, we're just going to have the system where there's these third-party fact checkers and they can check the worst of the worst stuff, right? So things that are very clear hoaxes, that there's like, it's not like we're not parsing speech about whether something is slightly true or slightly false, like Earth is flat, things like that, right? So that was sort of the original intent. We put in place the system and it just sort of veered from there. I think to some degree, it's because some of the people whose job is to do fact checking, a lot of their industry is focused on political fact checking. So they just kind of veered in that direction. And we kept on trying to basically get it to be what we had originally intended, which is just, it's not, the point isn't to like judge people's opinions. It's to provide this layer to kind of help fact check some of the stuff that seems the most extreme. But it just, it was just never accepted by people broadly. I think people just felt like the fact checkers were too biased. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily even so much in what they ruled, although sometimes I think people would disagree with that. A lot of the time, it was just what types of things they chose to even go and fact check in the first place. So I kind of think like after having gone through that whole exercise, it I don't know, it's something out of like 1984, one of these books where it's just like it really is a slippery slope. And
Yeah.
it just got to a point where it's just, okay, this is destroying so much trust, especially in the United States, to have this program. And I guess it was probably about a few years that I really started coming to the conclusion that we were going to need to change something about that.
Let that sink in. The founder of Meta himself admits they gave too much deference to media narratives about Russian collusion. This wasn't just bad judgment. This was the deep state's playbook in action. Think about the magnitude of what we just witnessed. One of the world's most powerful tech platforms essentially confessing they were manipulated into becoming the thought police. And why? Because the establishment couldn't handle the fact that Americans rejected their chosen narrative. They couldn't accept that people could think for themselves. So they manufactured a crisis, the Russian collusion hoax, to justify unprecedented levels of censorship and control. In our next segment, you're about to witness something that should shake every American to their core. The Biden administration wasn't just suggesting, they were actively demanding the suppression of truth about vaccine side effects. This isn't about public health anymore. This is about control. This is about a government that believes it has the right to decide what medical facts you're allowed to know. Watch this chilling revelation.
COVID was the other big one, where that was also very tricky because, at the beginning it was, it's like a legitimate public health crisis, in the beginning, and it's even people who are like the most ardent First Amendment, defenders. The Supreme Court has this clear precedent that's like, all right, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. There are times when, if there's an emergency, your ability to speak can temporarily be curtailed in order to get an emergency under control. So I was sympathetic to that at the beginning of COVID. It seemed like, okay, you have this virus. It seems like it's killing a lot of people. I don't know, we didn't know at the time how dangerous it was going to be. So at the beginning, it kind of seemed like, okay, we should give a little bit of deference to the government and the health authorities on how we should play this. But when it went from, 2 weeks to flatten the curve to, and like in the beginning, it was like, okay, there aren't enough masks. Masks aren't that important. To then it's like, oh no, you have to wear a mask. And, everything was shifting around. It just became very difficult to kind of follow. And this really hit the most extreme, I'd say, during the Biden administration when they were trying to roll out the vaccine program. And I'm generally like pretty pro rolling out vaccines. I think on balance, the vaccines are more positive than negative. But I think that while they're trying to push that program, they also tried to censor anyone who was basically arguing against it. Right? I mean, they basically pushed us and said, anything that says that vaccines might have side effects, you basically need to take down. And I was just like, well, we're not going to do that. Like, we're clearly not going to do that. I mean, that is kind of inarguably true.
Who is they? Who's telling you to take down things that
it was
that talk about vaccine side effects?
It was people in the Biden administration. I think it was, I wasn't involved in those conversations directly, but I think they pushed us super hard to take down things that were true. The interactions that I was just referring to, I mean, a lot of this is documented. I mean, because Jim Jordan and the House had this whole investigation and committee into the kind of government censorship around stuff like this, and we produced all these documents, and it's all in the public domain.
My fellow Americans, what we just witnessed is nothing short of government tyranny in action. Biden officials were literally screaming and cursing at tech executives to remove content about vaccine side effects. Not misinformation, not conspiracy theories, but actual truth. When government officials feel entitled to suppress medical facts from the American people, we're not just walking toward tyranny, we're sprinting toward it with our eyes wide open. Think about the precedent this sets. A government that believes it can decide which medical truths you're allowed to know today can decide which political truths you're allowed to know tomorrow. This isn't just about vaccines. This is about whether we remain a free society where information flows freely or become a controlled society where truth requires government approval. In this next clip, you're about to witness the brass-knuckle tactics of a government that's forgotten its constitutional limitations. When Meta refused to bow to their demands, watch how quickly the most transparent administration in history turned to naked intimidation. This isn't oversight anymore, patriots. This is pure retaliation. Watch this.
These people from the Biden administration would call up our team and scream at them and curse. And it's like these documents it's all kind of out there.
Oh, did you record any of those phone calls?
I don't think we were, but I think
I want to listen.
I mean, there are emails. The emails are published. It's all kind of out there, and they're like, and basically it just got to this point where we were like, no, we're not gonna take down things that are true. That's ridiculous. They want us to take down this meme of Leonardo DiCaprio looking at a TV talking about how 10 years from now or something, you're gonna see an ad that says, okay, if you took a COVID vaccine, you're eligible for, for this kind of payment, like this sort of like class action lawsuit type meme. And they're like, no, you have to take that down. And we said, no, we're not going to take down humor and satire. We're not going to take down things that are true. And then at some point, I guess, I don't know, it flipped a bit. I mean, Biden, when he gave some statement at some point, I don't know if it was a press conference or to some journalists, where he basically was like, these guys are killing people. And I don't know. Then like all these different agencies and branches of government basically just like started investigating, coming after our company. It was brutal. It was brutal.
Wow. The administration is doing something where I think they crossed the line, where it gets really weird, where they're saying what you're saying. They were trying to get you to take down vaccine side effects, which is just crazy.
Ladies and gentlemen, what we just witnessed is how the modern American government operates when it doesn't get its way. When Meta refused to take down truthful information, Biden publicly declared they were killing people. And suddenly, what a coincidence, multiple federal agencies started investigations. This isn't oversight. This is government retaliation against free speech. The pattern is clear. First comes the pressure, then comes the threats, and finally comes the punishment. This is how liberty dies in America. Not through a sudden coup, but through the slow strangulation of free speech by government bureaucrats who think they know better than you what truth you're allowed to hear. What we've witnessed today isn't just about social media policies or content moderation. This is about the soul of America itself. When government officials feel empowered to demand the suppression of truth, to scream at private companies for allowing factual discussion, and to weaponize federal agencies against those who resist, we're no longer living in the republic our founders envisioned. If this kind of government overreach makes your blood boil like it does mine, hit that subscribe button and join our fight for truth. Drop a comment below. How many other stories have been buried by this unholy alliance between big government and big tech? Remember to like, share, and subscribe to Freedom and Liberty Watch. The truth won't defend itself, and neither will our freedoms. Until next time, keep watching, keep thinking, and most importantly, keep fighting for liberty.